Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Call the meeting to order. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards. I'm leader of the council and I chair Cabinet. A welcome to everybody who's now following us in this room. You are most welcome to be here, and I'm pleased we were able to move the room rather than move you. Failure of the systems next door. Colleagues, I've got a remote joiner here.
Yeah, I don't think that's possible. Councillor O'Brien wouldn't be able to attend it officially.
Okay, thank you.
Give her apologies.
I have dismissed that. We're not expecting a fire alarm. If one sounds, we will be evacuating the building. I notice that most of you are members, if not all, and we can easily ensure everybody's safe evacuation from the building. You know where the fire exits are. Can I please ask you to make sure your mobile phones are turned to silent? We will get straight into the agenda, if we may, please, Mark. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you very much. We have apologies from Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest in matters before this meeting. Colleagues, are there any additional declarations? None indicated, Mark. Thank you. Agenda item 3 is to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Colleagues, that's the meeting of the 26th of June. They are published at page 5, I believe, of the pack. Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 4 is to confirm that the items of business marked in part 1 will be considered in public and items in part 2 in private. We will break the meetings between the two parts, invite members of the public to retire, and we will break the YouTube link. We do provide a fuller briefing of those matters that are considered in part 2, which are typically matters of contractual matters, confidential business matters. So we will now move straight into the main agenda. Agenda item 5, please, the Uxbridge Vision. Councillor Tuckwell.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Good evening, colleagues. I'm pleased to bring forward the Uxbridge Vision, a strategic framework for the regeneration and long-term growth of Uxbridge Town Centre. Colleagues will also be aware of the two appendices attached to this agenda item. The vision responds to serious challenges facing town centres nationally: retail decline, changing work patterns and reduced footfall. Without action, we risk Uxbridge falling behind. The vision focuses on 3 priorities: building economic resilience, better serving local communities and enhancing the quality of our public realm. It has been shaped by extensive engagement with over 1,000 stakeholders involved and 73% public support. We've made sensible adjustments following the consultation, including on women's safety and active travel. You'll be pleased to know that there is no cost to the Council. We have secured £315,000 of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund through capital funding, and we've already secured and started to begin delivery, focusing on early public realm improvements and groundwork for longer-term generation. Cabinet this evening is asked to note the vision, adopt it and endorse the US SPF delivery and improve the environment of £315,000 to support this work. Colleagues will agree that this is a positive and deliverable step that is locally supported plan with clear signal that we are serious about Uxbridge's future. I therefore move the 4 recommendations outlined on page 26. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, are those recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 6, houses of multiple occupation, additional licensing controls. Councillor Tuckwell again.
Thank you, Leader. Back to me again, colleagues. This report sets out our progress in exploring whether Hillingdon should introduce additional licensing scheme for smaller HMOs following the motion that was passed at full council last July. We are currently delivering a borough-wide housing tenure survey due to be completed this August. This will provide a robust Hillingdon-specific evidence needed to determine whether further regulation through licensing or planning controls can be justified. The proposal to continue this work, and if evidence supports it, is to enter into consultation publicly later this year on a draft additional licensing policy, possibly extending Article 4 direction. I want to be clear to everybody that this is about tackling poor standards, antisocial behaviour and protecting both tenants and communities while supporting responsible landlords. Today I am asking Cabinet to note the progress made, and to delegate authority to shape the consultation if warranted by the evidence. Any final proposals, including the resource and cost implications, will return to Cabinet in February 2026. I therefore move the 6 recommendations to Cabinet as outlined on page 156. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckwell. I recognise residents' concern about how long this takes to bring in. I would just like to say that there is a multitude of evidence that we need to bring together to assess. We have to go through the proper process to do it, otherwise our decisions would be challenged and reversed. It's regrettable that there is so much regulation and red tape around the way councils operate, but that's the life we live in, and that is one of the reasons why we are moving cautiously with this work so that we don't fall foul of the rules. Colleagues, the recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, the Council Budget Outturn 2024-25 and Month 2 Monitoring 25-26. Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Leader. This report deals with the outturn for the Council's financial results for the fiscal year ended 31st of March 2025, together with a projection for the full year 25-26 results as they stood at month 2, which is at May 2025. This report set out on pages 1 to 59 of Agenda Pack B. On behalf of the Finance team, may I offer my apologies to members for the late arrival of this report, which is due to the complexity of the matters currently being addressed within the Finance function, including the Finance Modernisation Programme, which I'll speak of a little more later on. This report delivers very serious news as to the Council's current financial challenges. However, it is clear that solutions do lie ahead and that action is being taken to secure those solutions. Members will be aware that Cabinet has for many years asserted that Hillingdon has been materially underfunded by central government, and there now exists tangible evidence generated by central government itself in the form of the Fair Funding Review 2.0, which clearly indicates that this assertion is correct. The current funding formula methodology was last revised in 2013-14, and it is notable that a failure to eliminate an intended temporary reduction after 5 years has cost Hillingdon £48 million in grants. Hillingdon's past requests for this to be corrected and adjusted have unfortunately fallen upon deaf ears. It must be acknowledged that the new Fair Funding Review 2.0 is currently out for consultation, and there therefore is the possibility that there will be changes. However, further analysis of the review as currently framed, carried out by London councils, clearly indicates that Hillingdon is the most heavily underfunded London authority, and if the current proposals in the review were to be put in place, it is estimated that our funding from central government would increase by as much as 40%. Members will also be aware of the challenges faced by the Council in funding the cost of meeting its legal obligations with regard to asylum seekers, which is currently causing us underfunded expenditure of £5 million a year. To these pressures must be added the concerning increase in inflation, which is currently back up at 3.6% and has, of course, an impact on all of our costs, and the unexpected and unfunded increase in employers' national insurance, which took effect as of the 6th of April this year. The financial results contained within this report clearly reflect tough news for Hillingdon. The results of the review of the General Fund indicate that our closing reserves at the 31st of March 2025 are reduced to £6.7 million, and that is an adverse movement of £20.5 million from the position projected at budget setting. This has arisen as a result of a number of necessary accounting adjustments identified by the Financial Modernisation Programme. Members should be aware that only £1.3 million of these variances relate to increased estimates in service operating costs. It is notable that a number of these required adjustments extend back over as many as 12 years, and that they were not indicated for adjustment by the Council's external auditors. The Finance Modernisation Programme was commissioned by senior officers with the support of Cabinet and has been designed to enhance financial controls and budget monitoring procedures. Furthermore, the General Fund budget monitoring process for month 2 at 25-26 projects an overspend against budget for the full fiscal year of £16.4 million, which is very largely attributable to increasing demand for key statutory services such as adult and children's social care and homelessness. If this forecast is to be realised, it will create a deficit on general fund reserves of £13.7 million. It should be noted that the Council's 25-26 savings programme has been closely re-examined by the corporate management team, both with regard to deliverability and the necessary measures required to achieve delivery. It's pleasing to note that of the entire £38.8 million programme, CMT has only seen fit to write out £1.4 million so far, and this is a reflection of the Council's impressive track record in savings delivery. Whilst it should be recognised that this is a forecast and that the Council has and will take the opportunity to defer or eliminate costs in a sustainable manner, it has become inevitable that a dialogue with central government should take place, looking at necessary funding and support measures which will serve to mitigate the past underfunding using measures described as exceptional financial support, or EFS. It should be noted that London councils have estimated that average overspending by London boroughs in 24-25 and 25-26 exceeds the levels incurred by Hillingdon, and that at least 7 London boroughs will be in receipt of EFS next year. It's also notable that Hillingdon's service operating costs are clearly benchmarked as being lower than those of comparable outer London boroughs, whilst at the same time our key services have all received praise and high gradings from independent review bodies. Hillingdon residents incur the second lowest level of council tax in outer London, excuse me, and our fees and charges also remain amongst the very lowest. We've performed well to sustain without reduction our core services against these financial constraints, but the time has come for a very necessary reset to our funding structure. The dedicated schools grant indicates an in-year deficit of £12.5 million for 25-26, which reflects a material reduction of £14.6 million in our annual operating costs. This will take the cumulative deficit to £78.1 million, which is significantly less than many other comparable authorities. This is also another area of central government underfunding, and it should be recognised that the national picture of underfunding of special educational needs is so extensive that the government has had to extend the use of the statutory override on the dedicated schools grant deficits for a further 2 years while it seeks a solution to this issue. The housing revenue account indicates the maintenance of reserves of £15 million both for 24-5 and projected to the end of 25-6, with only minor variances in operating costs which can be internally absorbed. This report contains numerous recommendations. There are 4 recommendations which are set out on page 3, which are self-explanatory. A further 13 recommendations are set out on pages 54 and 55, plus one further recommendation which has been a late entry, item 2N, which has been added as a late addendum. And again, these are largely self-explanatory, although I do wish to draw members' attention to a few items. Items B and C recommend the rephasing of unspent capital expenditure for the general fund and the housing revenue account from 24-5 budgets to 25-26. Item D recommends the redeployment of capital receipts initially held to apply against the dedicated schools grant to meet transformation expenditure. Item L recommends going out to public consultation during 25-26 in respect of changes to fees and charges mid-year. And the late addendum item, item N, recommends the implementation of various interim safety measures at Union Park Estate, Uxbridge, which if put in place will allow residents to remain in their homes while emergency works are progressed. Now, with your permission, Leader, what I'd like to do is to request that Councillor Bianco gives a bit more colour to that last recommendation, but I so recommend those points.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gold, and I believe it's right to do so, as your knowledge of this particular challenge is not as extensive as Councillor Bianco. Councillor Bianco, thank you.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Goddard. Yes, the Union Park Estate is an extensive and not that old estate in Packetboat Lane, Uxbridge, for those who know it, and we have been aware for a relatively short time of significant issues with the buildings. We, as a council, own one of the blocks of only 13 units, where we have already carried out emergency works to improve the fire alarm system. But what has caused this current issue to come really to light and matters to come to a head, is that the managing agents for the rest of the estate undertook or commissioned a fire risk assessment, and the fire risk assessment was particularly damning. Fortunately, we had a number of conversations with the London Fire Brigade, with whom we have been working very closely on this matter, which has resulted in us taking interim measures across the estate, putting in place, I can't remember what they're called, walking watch people, which basically means that there are people on site at all times looking out in case of fire, as a temporary measure, prior to ensuring that an upgrade in the fire alarm systems across the whole estate are implemented, which we will be monitoring and pursuing. And today we have issued a notice letter to both the managing agents and the owners, setting out clearly our position as the local authority, taking control of these matters under the various different pieces of legislation that apply. This is entirely to ensure that the residents of this estate are become and continue to be housed safely. This is a really important matter. We've taken a grip of it really quickly. We hope that the walking watch people will only be there in a relatively short term, and that the fire alarm system will be upgraded to a satisfactory level to provide sufficient cover and provide sufficient comfort to the occupiers of the buildings. So I think that's a useful addition. We're acting quickly, and that will make the difference.
Thank you very much. That last item is just an example of the sorts of issues that arise that incur unplanned expenditure by a council. And here we are expending public funds to retain people in their houses safely that we don't own and aren't responsible for. But the alternative would be to have them moved out of their house and placed into temporary accommodation that the council would need to provide. As I say, that's an example of the sort of expenditure that even the greatest planning cannot foresee. Turning to the main matter here, which is the outturn and the month 2, you are absolutely right, Councillor Garlow. These are concerning, and residents will rightly have some concern. I do wish to again emphasise the issue of the asylum pressures that we have had, the historic underfunding that you've mentioned, and quite interesting for me is the emerging new formula that the government are presently consulting on, which when modelled shows not only Hillingdon to be the most underfunded local authority in London, but also shows that 4 of the 5 most underfunded are presently in EFS or in discussions with EFS. I also point out that only yesterday the Cross-Party Housing, Communities and Local Government Committee, House of Parliament, again emphasised that the council tax system is broken. We look forward to this being addressed by the Labour government in the coming period, and for Hillingdon to receive the funding that its residents deserve and our services require. The issues have come to light through prudent activity commissioned by ourselves and our officers, and although that doesn't give us any great comfort when having identified some issues, at least it does show that we are housekeeping ourselves and are not dependent upon external review and scrutiny to identify these issues. I am confident that this report will be subject to considerable debate and discussion in Council in September and give opportunities for others to comment. But at this moment in time, I note the recommendations as set out and moved, Colleagues, are those all agreed, including the addendum on the emergency spending?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 8 is a public preview of confidential reports. This is added to give a further information to residents on those matters that we will now consider in part 2. It is a single item on this one, and it concerns the Environmental Street Enforcement Service that is out for contract. And also in part 2, an urgent item on community equipment. Those two items, and I apologise for not being able to have put that within the preview. It really is a last moment issue. At this point we will break part 1, ask members of the public to retire, break the link, and then we'll move into part 2. Thank you.